I witnessed your 112 against Warwickshire with Bob Willis in the attack, and I wanted to know whether this was a significant milestone, and also what your memories of the late Bob Willis are, as we now name the new contest, the Bob Willis Trophy, don't we? I think.
Yeah.
John,
Well,
yeah.
thank you. So, what a lovely question. Well, first of all, Bob was an extraordinary man, actually, and a very highly intelligent man who I got on with very well, and a big man too. He bowled very fast, but he didn't bowl, thank goodness, so very fast in county matches compared with test matches. He had to save his body, his legs, his arms, that strange action he had. He had to save it for test matches, really. So he didn't bowl so very fast in county matches. An interesting chap, very interesting person. And that game at Hove, you're so kind of you to remind me of that moment. 1977 it was, probably July, and Willis is bowling at the beginning of the Sussex innings from the C end. So he's coming up the hill, where I think he found it easier to get his balance with all those legs and arms and whatnot. And I had 3 runs at the time, and he bowled a ball to me. I fenced at it outside the off stump, edged it to first slip. I only had 3. It was a very straightforward chance, and it went at comfortable height, about mid-drift, to Rowan Canhigh at first slip. Fortunately, it was early in the morning, and Rowan Canhigh hadn't really woken up to the day's play at all. And the ball just hit him in the tummy. I don't think he even laid a hand on it. And the ball then fell to the ground, and I was still in by a miracle. Bob Willis, always, you know, calm sort of fellow. I think it was sort of probably run-of-the-mill stuff for him, really, and continued. So that's the bit I remember about Bob. And I remember actually scoring my 100 against a bowler who many will have forgotten, who played for Oxford, a little bit for Warwickshire, was quite successful, called Richard Savage. He bowled sort of fast off spinners, right-handed Derek Underwoods, but not quite as good, to be honest. And he was bowling, he bowled a nice half volley outside the off stump, and I think I drove it through extra cover and got to my 100, and he came up and said, you know, the opposition shook me by the hand, let alone the other batsman. It was very courteous. And interestingly, Richard went on to become a teacher and is now married to Caroline Lucas, who's the one and only Green Party Member of Parliament for Brighton, which was the constituency in which I lived as a boy, the Brighton Pavilion constituency in Brighton. So there we are, Caroline Lucas, Richard Savage, 100 at Hove. It's all part of the fun.
Well, John, I must chip in here, because you did invite the 2 of them to come to one of the launches, possibly of Life Beyond the Airing Cupboard. And I did take the opportunity to ask him about this 100th run, and he thought you edged it down to 3rd man.
No, he's completely wrong. I admit it was a fine shot. I hope he's wrong anyway.
Right, so maybe we go on to the next question. John, I put a poll up about your question about 95 out or 101 not out and losing. 95% of people would rather score 95 and be out and win. So there we go. You got your answer to that one.
Well,
I'm going to launch the rest of the polls. And I'm going to ask, Stephen, if this is okay, I'm going to ask Morley Pecker to ask his question now.
Thank you very much, Nick. I should be on screen. Am I on? No.
Yes, you are.
Am I? I've now got the question. Okay, as long as I'm on screen, that's fine.
You're on screen.
I'm covered by the questions you're putting through.
Well, you can just move those to the side, but yeah.
Okay. John, thank you so much. It's been wonderful going back into a little bit of the past and history, and really appreciated. Marvelous. But may I just bring you forward to the present and talk to you about wicket keepers?
Yes, yes.
What my question is as follows. Do you not agree with me and with many others that now is the time to take a firm decision on England's wicketkeeper? Folks was really excellent in Sri Lanka. I was out there, and he batted very well there too.
Yes.
Should he now not be given the chance to show his skills at international level in his home country? The present conditions that we are suffering from at the moment seem the ideal opportunity and enable good planning for the future. Could you just speak on your view on that, and perhaps mention Johnny Bairstow and Mr. Butler, and give us your view as to what England should be doing?
Well, what a very testing question. I got to confess, I'm not the greatest expert on keepers, as I think everyone would say, but of course, the whole style of the concept of wicket-keeper batsman has changed considerably over many years. And there are very few sides now that don't, as it were, make use of a tip-top, as best they can, all-rounder, both batting and wicket-keeping. And I think that very often does involve a compromise, or a certain amount of compromise. And I think the difficulty that the selectors have to come up with, and the captain, is to where that element of compromise lies. So I go along with you wholeheartedly, your views over the wicket-keeping position for particularly this season. It does seem a golden opportunity to have a look and see. But it will depend on how the selectors, the head selector, and I feel the captain and the head coach, obviously, feel towards that compromise of that compromise within the context of the whole team. Now, of course, I don't know the exact chemistry of the whole team, but what I do know is that every team, and every team I played in, does have a very distinct chemistry. So sometimes people play in a side whereby the public are not quite sure why so-and-so is playing rather than someone else. And I do appreciate that. But it's all a matter of compromise. It's all a matter of the chemistry within the team. But I agree wholeheartedly with the sentiment of your question.
Stephen, do we want to move on to one of the ones that came in by email? Or
Yes,
I
let's
could ask,
yes. I've got three more questions here. Staying with the theme of days you'd rather forget, John. One of the listeners whose name I heard is coming in as the 100th contributor, Hugh Kirkbride. He has sent me the following question. Are you there, John?
Yep, I'm here.
You only played at Bath once. And it didn't go very well, did it? Any memories of your three-day match at Bath in 1978?
Well, I really do remember that very, very well. First of all, we played at Bath, and as you will know, many of you who've been to Bath, the matches at Bath, the Bath week, were played on the recreation ground, not at Bath Cricket Club, as you all know. The recreation ground was only played on, I believe, for actual first-class cricket. So yes, the little square there was, rather like at Weston, was only played for these first-class matches. Big crowds, rugby ground down at the far corner, river not far away, beautiful place, but pitch, what you might call a little bit uneven. When I think of uneven, I always say the pitch a little bit Sabina Park-ish, and Sabina Park, and indeed Bath, is not the place you really want to encounter Joel Garner, or anybody for that matter. So Joel Garner, I've actually got this match in front of me. Would you believe it's the only one I've got here? Joel Garner bowled 23 overs in our first innings, Sussex, and took 5 for 50. Well, we did jolly well to only let him get 5. 5 for 50. We also, Sussex on that occasion, had a woefully inexperienced and weak side compared with Somerset. I must give you a few names. Sussex, Barclay, Mendes, both aged about 23, 24. Jerry Groom, Imran. I suppose Imran got naught.
Didn't bowl. He wasn't bowling.
And Imran couldn't bowl. And I think he had shin soreness. I think he had the dreaded shin soreness, which is always a very good excuse actually not to bowl, really, if you didn't fancy it, because no one could prove you hadn't got shin soreness. And Phillipson, Story, Buss, M.A. Buss, Long, Spencer, Cheadle, Marshall. Somerset, listen to this, everybody. Peter Denning, Dasher Denning, what a good player. Philip Slocum, good young player. Viv Richards, fairly useful. Mervyn Kitchen, who had a dog called Thumper. I bet you didn't all know that. Peter Roebuck came in at number 5, made 77. Brian Rose at number 6, made 112. Graham Burgess, 33. Taylor, Garner, Jennings and Dredge. Oh, I've got a cup of tea. Look at that. Thank you so much.
Magic.
That's a joy. Magic. So it was a bit of a mismatch, to be absolutely honest. And just the horrors of we were so frightened by Garner in the first innings that in the second innings, suffering from shock. We all got out to Dredge, Burgess, Jennings, and I see Viv Richards took 2 wickets. I mean, but people were very kind to Viv when he bowled because they didn't want him to take it out on them when he batted. So he got away with it, as others never would have done. So it was a terrible occasion. We lost by miles. We lost by a distance. It was simply awful. I was very consistent in that match, I spotted. I made 15 in the first innings, LBW Jennings, and 15 in the second innings, bowled Dredge, which was up towards the top of the scoreboard, actually, not top of that.
Oh, dear.
There we go. Thanks for that one.
Do you miss all the outgrounds, do you think?
Yes, I think the outground cricket, I mean, I will never forget that game. It was pretty awful. We had an equally horrid experience at Weston, in Western Superman, which year? The next year, 1979. And we played at Weston when the Fastnet race was going on, that terrible race when so many yachts were damaged and so many people died in the Fastnet race in the 70s. And I remember the poplars, they may have been poplars at Weston, Clarence Park, were practically folding over onto the ground, not actually breaking. And Garner was still bowling and Kepler Wessels was batting, and he got naught in both inningses. He made a pair. And I was worried for his health that he might sort of throw himself off the balcony of the hotel in Weston. You know, these terrible, terrible things happen on the circuit, I tell you. That was Weston. But yes, the answer is, despite that, I think the outgrounds, I hope they'll become more needed with the future programme of matches, and that certainly in Sussex, we were scheduled to play at Horsham and Eastbourne and Arundel, as well as Hove this year. And I hope that this year won't put everybody off. I'm sure it won't. I think it's really important, yeah.
Right.
I've got
Shall we have one in from, would you like to bring in Chris and Elspeth Coke for me?
Sure, just one sec.
Yeah, we were.
Chris, yeah.
Yeah, we were wondering, Johnny, what your favourite time was at Arundel when you were working there.
Oh, favourite times. Well, it's so kind. It's lovely to see you, and so kind of you to bring that up. There were many good times. I mean, the Arundel project started in 1986. It evolved and emerged through into the 90s. I think one of the tournaments that I became very fond of was one which we called the Inner Cities tournament or trophy, played for the Colin Cowdrey trophy each year, which we ran for about 17 years alongside the Lord's Taverners, who gave tremendous support. And we did about 17 years, and we had to stage the finals at Arundel with 8 teams from all over the country, including Belfast, including Glasgow, Sunderland, Liverpool, Leeds, all over the place, London obviously, and elsewhere. And they merged upon Arundel to play in the finals. And I think each year that finals of that tournament gave me enormous pleasure, because it combined 2 things. It combined cricket, not of great standard at under 14 level, cricket with a definite enhancement of social values and contacts and communication amongst the young, who came from very varied and different backgrounds and cultures, and I loved it. That would be one of the favorites. I mean, there were lots of other things. The special needs program, fantastic. But I think that tournament had memories, which were great memories of many lovely people, and lovely management teams came down with those players, dedicated people doing it all for nothing. And it was great, absolutely marvellous.
Thank you.
I've got a question from Tim Corkwell, Stephen. I'm going to bring him in if that's okay.
Good.
Tim, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. John, I wanted to pick up your point about the absence of the crowd on day 5 at, sorry, I'll just get rid of this, on day 5 of the test, marvellous test. And let's just in passing, it was said by the Sky people that possibly more people watched that test on television than had ever happened before, because of course it's the only test cricket around the world. I think that's a wonderful statistic. It would be interesting to know what the audience was. But that's not my point. The absence of a crowd, England made 3 or 4 errors which they couldn't afford to make if they were going to win. 2 or 3 drop catches. All errors are forgivable, but the most egregiously least forgivable error was Zach Crawley missing that run out. Do you think that if there had been a crowd there willing them on, they'd have been much sharper with those half chances that you have to take?
Very, very good question. Well, it's speculation all the time. And I think my immediate reaction is no, I don't think so, although it could be the case. I think those mistakes, the catching mistakes, Crawley just mishandling at a crucial moment, are much more, to me, much more akin to early season, albeit it was July, early season rustiness, which certainly showed itself in the batting performance. Less so in the bowling, but a little bit, and very much in those little extra bits where you need to get the rhythm of the match, the rhythm of the tempo of the game. And on most what I call normal seasons, there's been quite a lot of first-class cricket. There's a lot now in April and May leading up to Test series, giving players just that extra chance to get into their rhythm, get their confidence, gather things together. So I would put it a little bit more down to absolutely natural, not quite match fitness, even though they're very fit as people, not quite match fitness for their mistakes. But of course I can't tell. People make mistakes. Thank goodness humans do make mistakes. That's part of life. So so I don't have any, I don't really condemn Crawley, who's a fine young player, for making one mistake and a handling thing. Goodness, it's easily done. And also, we're very accustomed to such very high standards compared to, let's say, 25, 30 years ago. But I think it was just, it was a little bit of a rusty performance for me, by England, both batting, a little bit, the fast bowlers, perhaps in the first innings, Archer and Wood bowled a fraction too short, didn't quite get the length right, but then bowled much better. No, a little bit rusty, you know. It's I think in horse racing terms, you'd probably say they needed a race.
Right. Do you want me to come in with a question?
Yeah, why not, Stephen? Yeah, and then I think we've got Bill Allen wants to ask a question. We've got a few people lining up, but maybe Bill Allen.
How much longer have we got?
Well, it's coming up for 5:30. Maybe another 3 questions. Why don't you read out one of the ones that you had emailed?
Well, I queued in Chris and Elspeth Coke because I had 2 questions from them, but they didn't ask either of the questions I sent. So I better read out what I can only do one of their 2, I think. Here's a real snorter for you, John.
Oh no.
You were the England assistant manager.
Yes.
On a tour of South Africa under Ray Illingworth.
Yeah.
And then the following winter, you were the England manager when David Lloyd was the head coach. And they were interested to know how the 2 of them differed as personalities, Ray Illingworth and Bumble Lloyd.
One of them comes from Yorkshire and the other comes from Lancashire, which sort of says it all, I think. Well, the thing is, life was never meant to be easy, I think, and it was quite a challenge, probably, working with 2 people who really know their game and who couldn't have been more different. So Ray Illingworth, as everyone knows, was one of England's finest captains and won the Ashes series in 1970 in Australia, and was very thoughtful. Handled John Snow exceptionally well as our leading fast bowler. Brilliant captain. Arguably, and I don't think this is dishonest of me to say, he was a little less strong as a coach stroke manager when his finger wasn't quite on the pulse as he felt it needed to be, I think, to be effective. So it was great fun for me to work with Raymond, and I really did enjoy it enormously. I loved listening to his stories, albeit mostly about himself, but I did love that. And they were fun too. He was, you know, he made me laugh. Now, David Lloyd, by contrast, incidentally, everybody, I've written about both of them in my extremely worthwhile book called Lost in the Long Grass. So you can read my essays, which give an appraisal of both of them. But David Lloyd is a bit of a genius in a way. He's got a very quick mind. He has wonderful comic genius and a wonderful communicator, which he shows all the time. He's a breadth of vision. He's unusual. He will tend to speak before he thinks, really, which lots of people do, and it is instinctive, but then occasionally perhaps the wrong words come out by mistake, which is, you know, fun. But it was great working with both of them. And, you know, David Lloyd is a very close friend. We go fishing together. He's a great fisherman, very good fisherman, David. Fishes left-handed. It's such an advantage for getting around bushes, which I'm sure for you all appreciate. And so we fish together and we chat away, and he's a wonderful cook. So when we go fishing with about 8 of us, he tends to do the cooking. He cooks beautifully and does the vegetables so well. And, you know, so he's a real team, quite different people. And I just feel, again, privileged and honoured to play, if you like, a bit of a walk-on part. I hugely enjoyed both tours. Both tours had all sorts of problems, cricketing-wise, politically, culturally, but I wouldn't wish it otherwise. Otherwise, my life would have been very dull. And to be absolutely honest, it wasn't England's greatest period as a cricketing team. We weren't a great side. We soldiered on as best we could, but it wasn't a vintage England period. I don't know when it ever has been, but that certainly wasn't. And
well, now you've spoken with Joy about fishing with David Lloyd, but you have missed out the joy of partnering Ray Illingworth at bridge.
I did. Well, they were mad about bridge. Railingworth, Mike Atherton, who were both very good. Malcolm Ashton, who was our scorer, a good player, and Philip Bell, Dr. Philip Bell, was our team doctor. Now, would you believe it? South Africa was the first time we ever had a team doctor on tour. We didn't have one in Zimbabwe the next year. I mean, I don't know why, but so we had those four, and they were the bridge four, and they played bridge practically every night. And on one absolutely ghastly, terrible occasion, I think it was Philip Bell. I think someone was slightly not well, one of the players, you know, not very ill, but I mean, it didn't take much for someone to make a fuss. And so Philip wasn't available for evening bridge. And Illy said, oh, well, John, you can stand in. Well, I thought I hardly ever played bridge, a little bit, a tiny bit, I couldn't remember. So I did, and I thought I did extremely well. But at the end of each encounter, what Illy liked to do was a little bit like a team talk in the dressing room. He would like to, he unwrapped each game and told you exactly how badly you played and what you'd done wrong and what you should do here and what a fool you were. And I was so polite, I'd say, Raymond, that's so kind. I'm improving all the time as a result of these. And of course, the rest of them loved it. But Illy took his bridge pretty seriously, and he was very good too. He took it pretty seriously, and of course, that's fun. That, you know, fun of the tour.
Stephen, I'm going to ask Bill Allen, our former chairman, to come in and ask his question, and then maybe we'll have one more after that. Bill, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello, John. I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, John.
Yep. Hello.
Can you hear me? Hello, John.
Yep.
It's good to see you and good to hear what you've been saying about West Indies cricketers. We've just had Everton Weeks die. The last of the three W's. I was lucky enough to be at Hove in 1957 as a teenager and saw Frank Worrell get 100. You've told us a lot about Viv Richards. Any memories of other great West Indian cricketers, the Gordon Greenidges, the Gary Sobers of this world?
Oh, what a wonderful question. Well, first of all, I'm pleased to say that Everton Weeks was just before my time, but I nearly played against Gary Sobers. It was so, I was a very, very young player, and Sussex were playing Nottinghamshire at Eastbourne, and Gary Sobers was playing, and I was almost in the team, but I was made 12th man. So I wish I could tell you that I actually took the field with Gary Sobers, who's the greatest really of all time. Gordon Greenidge. Now, listen, everybody, keep calm. I got him out. Yeah. Gordon Greenidge caught Groom, deep mid-wicket, at Southampton this was, caught Groom, bowled Barclay, 256. So that is my one claim. I think he lost concentration. And so that was Gordon Greenidge. But, I mean, you know, Viv Richards, Gordon Greenidge, Viv gave you more of a chance, I think, but Viv could turn a game in half an hour, and not many people can do that, but he did give you more of a chance, of course. Gordon Greenidge was tighter, more compact, had a very good defence. So did Viv, actually. So did Ian Botham. A lot of these very attacking players, you know, Ian Botham had a very good sound technique from which he attacked. Alvin Kallicharran, very, very fine player from the West Indies, and superb, instinctive player, natural player. I did play against Rohan Kanhai. He hit me for a few sixes at Hastings. Those rather nice houses, those tall houses, a bit like Scarborough. He hit it all the way there, and they couldn't find the ball. So yeah, Rohan Kanhai. Who else? Who have I forgotten? There's so many. They're so good.
Clive Lloyd.
Oh, Clive. Now, Clive Lloyd. Would you believe was my rabbit? I got Clive Lloyd out. Now, hang on, let me boast for a second, everybody. I got Clive Lloyd out in the semi-final of the Gillette before we played that final at Hove. Caught mid-on, caught by Story. It was a bad moment for Clive Lloyd. I got him out with a long hop at Hove. He hit it straight to deep square leg, out for 2. I caught and bowled him at Old Trafford. Can I tell you something? Imran had a point when he suggested I should bowl at Viv. I think there's something about the great players that when they see a very, very undistinguished bowler bowling at them, I think they don't concentrate quite so hard. So there is some method in putting on someone who's not a renowned, you know, why waste Imran Khan against Viv Richards when he's really then going to try hard? Why not bowl someone rather ordinary and average? And he might just not bother so much. So you can see, I can see the Prime Minister's thinking just.
Oh dear. Have we got
Stephen?
one more question, Nick?
Yes, have you got one more email? Otherwise, I'm going to ask. I've got one more from the floor.
Do it from the floor.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Chris Cheltenham. I'm unmuting you, Chris, if you want to ask your question.
Hello?
If not, I can read it out if Chris isn't unmuting. The question Chris asked John was, and this is him speaking, I first met you in Sydney playing for Waverley. What are your recollections of grade cricket and Australia?
Oh, that is a good question. Well, I loved playing my season and a half, I suppose, for Waverley in Australia. Would you believe it? I was made captain of Waverley. They got a Palmer to come in and captain their grade side. They'd had Boycott before me, and they'd had Greg before me. So, you know, I came in without too much pressure, and they made me captain. And I was captain for the season before I started as captain at Sussex. So it was the 80 to 81 season. I think they were bottom the year before, but we came about 7th, mid-table my year. So we did improve. I enjoyed it hugely. I bowled all the time. David Horn, left arm, googlies and whatnot, bowled the other end. That was exciting. David Horn bowled the other end. I bowled off spinners my end. I batted a bit. I did well, actually. I enjoyed it enormously. We played, of course, against really good players. Bankstown, we had Lenny Pascoe. New South Wales University, Jeff Lawson. I remember Jeff Lawson. He came along. He had a very nice girlfriend who had a sweet little kitten that used to run around the dressing room during sort of tea time. Very informal. Do you know, grade cricket's very amateur in a way. It's wonderful spirit. Everybody really liked playing and longed to play and enjoyed playing. And I remember we played a team called Petersham, just a little bit towards the west in Sydney, and they had a captain called Brian Riley. Old Riles, they called him, who seemed quite old to me. I was quite young. He wasn't that old. He was probably mid-30s, let's be honest. Brian Riley, I came into bat. I used to bat 3 or 4. I came into bat, and I did stay in quite a while. I may have made 40 or something, quite good for me. And he stood at extra cover, and he swore at me throughout my entire innings. And he kept me company, to be absolutely honest. I wouldn't have been the same without him. But he kept going on about Poms and how bad I was, neither of which was untrue. And at the end of the match, at the end of the day's play, and we were playing on the Petersham ground, at the end of the day's play, all the players always came into the dressing rooms, one of the other dressing rooms, and they had a beer together. That happened all the time, whatever had happened in the match. And we were sitting there having a beer, and old Riles looked at me and he said, right, I'm taking you out to dinner. You and your wife are coming out to dinner. And we went up to the tall circular building in Sydney, a bit like the post office tower, to a restaurant which went round very, very slowly. So you saw the whole of Sydney during dinner. So I've never forgotten it. And had dinner with Brian Riley, captain of Petersham, swore at me throughout the entire afternoon, who I then discovered was quite a cultured chap. and, I was amazed for an Australian, he knew about Shakespeare. And it sort of astonished me a bit. And so you never know. So it's a different world. And I really did enjoy it. And I think it did me a lot of good, to be honest, when I got back home again.
Well, what a wonderful note to finish on. And we have finished, haven't we?
Yes, I think that's it. I mean, Stephen, I'm just going to do a vote of thanks, unless there was anything else you wanted to add.
No, I got very anxious about the technology beforehand, but I think it's actually run quite smoothly, hasn't it? And I've enjoyed the afternoon very much.
It's run very smoothly. So I wanted to actually do 3 votes of thanks, to be honest with you. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who joined the call. Without you, it wouldn't have been half as much fun or any fun at all.
Are there still some there? Are there still some?
Yeah. Everyone can do their clapping or so thank you for that, and thank you for your questions. I'd like to thank you, Stephen, for your wonderful interview technique. I mean, you're a fantastic speaker in your own right, and we could easily listen to you all day, but the way you tease out of your subject, and I saw you talking to Fred Rumsey, which was a great joy as well. The way you tease out of the subject, just a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then of course John goes, does his bit. But fantastic, Stephen, and thank you for your preparation and I say that your skillful handling. And John, I mean, we could listen to you all day. Absolutely, all of it. Every story is has got some wonderful punchline. You've asked a question about Australia grade cricket, which you certainly haven't prepared that one, and of course you've got a wonderful story about it. Even that wonderful circular restaurant where I've also been in Sydney. So thank you, Stephen. Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone.